Chris.
Heath?
Hey, what's up? Hi.
Hello there.
How you doing?
I'm baffled with all the technical issues we just encountered to get this show rolling, but grateful that we got through it.
We persevered like all young, aspiring media. Would you consider yourself a media personality?
I'm the very lowest rung possible, but yes. I just cleared the hurdle by mere millimeters.
Yeah, there needs to be like, you know how Twitter has like a blue check mark for legit people?
For verified accounts?
Yeah, we need like a brown check mark or just some sort of like ellipses to indicate how very slightly we influence other people.
I think it's fair to say we hold tremendous sway over a very, very small minority of people. We're talking single digits here.
Or single digits. I was going to go dozen. I'm feeling good. I'm ready for this episode of Mobius Tubes.
Yes, episode 9 of Mobius Tubes, being recorded on February 7th, 2019. And I'm also feeling good. I'm hyped for this episode, Heath. Unlike my disposition last episode, I feel like my heart was not in it. I apologize to our listeners. Nothing was really grabbing my attention in the video game sphere, so I was forcing it, trying to come up with content for this podcast. But I didn't have to force it this week. I have things I'm actually enthusiastic about. Good
to hear. I'm misremembering last episode. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely some bits that I really dug.
Hopefully it came across as entertaining, but internally I was phoning it in.
Well, you don't have to phone it in this episode.
That's right, because I'm going to jump in with some corrections right now. One was I don't know if you edited this down on episode 8, but there was a minutes long brain fart I had on episode 8, trying desperately to find which game developer was working on Metroid Prime 4 before it was transitioned over to Retro.
Wasn't it just like in-house Nintendo?
No, it was Bandai Namco, which surprised me because they're not in-house. And it was kind of a collaboration between their Bandai Namco's Japanese studio and their Singapore location. But that's no longer the case. It's all being handled by Retro now. Bandai Namco will just be a asterisk on the history of Metroid Prime 4. A footnote.
Gone but not forgotten, because didn't they make Smash alongside Sakurai?
I can't speak to that. That doesn't sound familiar to me, though.
Oh, dude, I'm pretty sure I shot their name during the credits.
Okay, could be. I'm not usually paying super close attention. And we have another quasi-correction coming to us from frequent Mobius Tubes writer, Nathan.
All right, so he's done corrections before, and I've loved them. So hopefully I'll love this one.
This is partially a question, somewhat correct. I'm going to be correcting his question here, and maybe you can chime in too. This is referencing back to the end of episode 7. Nathan was on fire episode 7, providing us with all sorts of useful emails, and we were talking about how eventually he'll be producing the show for us, coming up with our own content.
We will leech off of his creativity, yes.
Yes, and you came up with this comparison, this analogy of Greek god X leeching or infiltrating Soda Poppin and Tyler 1, these streamers.
Yes, a well-documented case of pro-leeching.
Right. And he was like leech level 4, and he wanted to get to leech level 5, where eventually they'd be producing the content for him. And what Nate wrote in to say is, did Heath just compare me to a leech and Kim Kardashian?
No, we're the leeches. And he's providing us with the content. He's like an IV bag, and we're just sustaining life based on his awesome submissions. And so the Kim Kardashian thing, Well, I mean, she sort of leached on to other creators, right?
Yeah, I suspect so. So the correction was, in your very complex analogy, we are actually the leeches on Nate. He's producing the content for us in the future. That's what we were trying to get at here.
Yes, in the distant future. May it go on forever.
Exactly. And we might be hearing more from Nate later in this very episode.
Is he like a guest? Are we gonna throw it to him as like a senior correspondent?
I can neither confirm nor deny if he's in the room with me right now.
Oh!
So that's all I had for corrections.
Okay.
Heath, kick us off. Tell me a little bit about your week in video games.
I have I don't want to say that I played less video games than last week, but probably the same amount, which was none. I really didn't have time for many video games. I mostly just watched live streams and listened to podcasts. That was the extent of my video game consumption.
Hey, in this day and age, games are a big time commitment. That's totally fair. I stumbled across like a 3 podcast episode mini series called The Greatest Game. I wanted to give a plug right here. There's 2 hosts. One of the guys works for one of Sony's first party studios as a game producer. The other guy works at NASA, so that's pretty cool. And it's a 3 episode miniseries, although there are rumors they might be doing an extra 3 episodes this year. And it's talking about the philosophy of play. They're trying to define what play is, what a game is, what art is. And they're examining these very philosophical questions through the lenses of video games. And I thought it was some really cool discussions, thought-provoking stuff. It makes me reflect a little more deeply on why I come to play video games, why that's something I enjoy spending my time doing. I think it's well worth a listen. They break down what they call the 6 or 7 heuristics of play. These are kind of 6 or 7 pieces of criteria that if one or more of them are missing, they argue that the activity in question would not be considered play. I'll throw out an example or two so you have some sort of idea what these heuristics are. One is there has to be an element of predictability during the play, because if you can't anticipate what your actions are going to do, you're not playing so much as just randomly interacting with the system. On the flip side of that, there has to be some level of unpredictability as well, because if it's all certain, if everything you do, there's no level of doubt in it, then you're more performing than playing. You're not having to adapt on the fly. You're just kind of doing this action that's set in stone. There's a lot of other cool examples. You go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just trying to think of examples of like what's a game that has very low, what'd you say, predictability?
There's predictability and uncertainty are kind of 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, but both need to be present to some extent.
Because when I'm playing Civilization, I know exactly what's going to happen, but it's still fun. Does that make it like less of a game, but that doesn't make it any less enjoyable? Yeah,
they have discussions of if these things are missing, does it make it not a game, or is it just a less compelling game? To your Civilization 5 example, surely you can't anticipate exactly what the AI players are doing every turn, right?
You underestimate my massive 4X turn-based strategy brain.
Okay, so you might be at Grandmaster level here.
Yes.
So I recommend checking them out. It's called The Greatest Game. Not too much of a time commitment. There's just like 3 hours worth of podcasts to listen to. Recommended.
When you brought up that, what is it, like 6 heuristics of play, you know what it made me think of?
I do not.
It made me think of the 6 types of play for children. So this is more of like a developmental psychology thing. You'll see like go to this Google image. I know it so well. It shows the 6 types of play that like toddlers do, and you can try to guess which one I am in the Google image. You got, while you look it up, I'm going to fill. There's the one that you probably most think of, cooperative play, when kids are like, playing a board game and they all gotta work together to get to the end or something like that. There's solitary play, in which you can see in the Google image, a little kid's playing with his Godzilla action figure, he just all by himself. Then
I found the article.
Okay, good. Well, it's the Google image.
I know exactly who you are.
Oh, we'll get there, yeah. There's associative play, which is like 2 kids like sort of playing by themselves, but they're also like both of them are building blocks separately, but they're trying to mimic each other maybe, so it has a level of interaction there. There's parallel, which is like no interaction, but it's still doing the same thing, such as drawing. There's unoccupied, which is this girl just like looking out a window, and that's supposedly play. And then there's the onlooker, who is watching the solitary kid play with his action figures. So among the 6 here, Chris, what would you say you are, and what would you say I am?
I would categorize myself as the solitary player, while you, on the other hand, are the onlooker player.
I am so this kid in the pink overalls looking at other kids playing and be like, wow, I'm having so much fun.
How did
Is that weird?
I'm more weirded out by the fact that you had these 6 different types of toddler play styles memorized.
No, I'm looking at the Google image too. That's how I called out like the pink overalls. Okay. But as soon as you said like the 6 heuristics of play, I was like, this Google image. Everybody, I asked like our audience to come check this out and just tweet me what your style of play is according to this Google image. It's a thought experiment, to say the least.
I thought this article and the images associated with it were burned into your memory for some reason.
No.
Okay, so around 14 minutes into this podcast, we'll finally talk about some video games that we've been playing.
All right.
Or that I've been playing. Here's the quick appetizer. Yes, I'm playing more Into the Breach, but I'm not going to talk about it again this episode. It's great. Check it out, all listeners. I think for the level of depth that you can get into this game, the amount of strategy involved, it's also very accessible. I don't think many people would dislike it if they gave it a try.
I was about to call you out and be like, all listeners? What?
Yeah, so not all, but I think the vast majority of people would dig this game.
Okay.
I started my Dishonored Death of the Outsider second playthrough, trying to go through the Ghost playthrough, aka never get detected by anyone as I play through the levels. It's fun. I arguably like playing Dishonored games more with this style of play, the kind of non-lethal, never get seen.
Yeah, that's how they intend for you to play it.
Probably, yeah. It is, at its heart, a stealth game. And I've already encountered my favorite thing, where I'm playing through an old level again, and I happen across this new shortcut, this new secret passage that I never encountered during my first playthrough. And it's just so satisfying to come across something new I didn't know existed beforehand, even though I thought I was being very thorough in my exploration.
Okay.
So, loving Dishonored, but the main course I brought to the show this week is actually a new 2019 release.
Uh-oh. You were supposed to save that for next year.
No, I'm playing a brand new game. So let's talk about Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay. What do you have to say?
That was a total joke. I wanted to get your reaction.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm currently a Disney employee, right?
Yes.
I couldn't care less about Kingdom Hearts. I don't care about the story, the characters. The graphics look amazing, but I couldn't tell you like who's been Norded. Shout out to Brian David Gilbert again. Have you looked into his video on Kingdom Hearts yet?
I have not, no.
He takes a real literary approach to it and actually breaks down the hero's journey, and it breaks it down into like the 12 steps of call to action, denial of the call, unforeseen circumstances. It's like a total writing a masterclass into Kingdom Hearts, and he tries to like patch the story together among all the stupid iterations of this series, and it lends itself to being a funny video because the Kingdom Hearts franchise is just a train wreck. I can't believe I haven't been fired yet for saying that.
I'm kind of in agreement with you there. Yeah, out of all the gaming franchises that are present on this earth, Kingdom Hearts is the one that I look at and I go, how did this ever come to exist? Because mixing the iconic Disney characters, both new and old, with Square Enix JRPG Final Fantasy-esque characters doesn't seem like it would ever work.
It's like an uncanny abomination, yeah.
On my YouTube homepage last week, this video just happened to pop up called Why I Can't Introduce Kingdom Hearts to My Friends. It has about 500,000 views. I watched through it. It's 2 minutes of these super cringy scenes that are, admittedly, they've been divorced of all context in the story, but they had me bursting out laughing. So enough teasing. The game I'm excited to talk about this week is Wargroove.
What? I've never heard of this game.
Oh, okay. So Wargroove came out on February 1st, and it is a spiritual successor to Advance Wars. Are you familiar with Nintendo's very iconic turn-based strategy modern military game?
What? It's so you say. I sure think I would be in tune with turn-based and Nintendo, but I've never would I know this game if I saw it?
I'm gonna say you probably don't if the name itself is not ringing a bell. So one of Nintendo's very close development studios is Intelligent Systems. They make Fire Emblem, and this is its counterpart, Advance Wars. If Fire Emblem is the fantasy version, Advance Wars is the more modern military one. It's had iterations on like the Game Boy. That's where the name Advance Wars comes from. It was on the Game Boy Advance. And it had new installments on like the DS and other systems. But there has not been an Advance War series entry since 2008. So it's kind of a dead franchise, which could explain why it sounds unfamiliar to you, Heath.
Yeah, it's got a top-down Pokemon-looking map.
Yes, pixel art, top-down perspective. So this game has been pretty nostalgic for me, and that may come as a surprise considering I've never played a single Advance Wars game. But circa 2009 to 2010, I was playing a whole bunch of Advance War knockoff games on my second generation iPod Touch.
What?
We're talking Mecha Wars, Uni War, and my favorite, Reign of Swords. These were... I can't speak to how solid these games actually are, but I enjoyed them at the time as a youth.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually playing like a proper one with Wargroove, which came out on the Switch and on PC a week ago. And I am eating it up. Last week, where I was floating around between all sorts of games, this is all I've been playing since it came out, more or less. Let me tell you something interesting. Wargroove and Into the Breach, I'm going to draw some comparisons here. Although they are very different games, I think they serve as a cool foil because they're both turn-based strategy games, but they approach the genre with polar opposite design philosophies. While Into the Breach is compact and dense, and you put a lot of consideration behind each of your limited number of moves.
Right, because if one of your guys dies, that's like a third of your power, right?
Exactly, yes. Every single move you make counts immensely in Into the Breach. Wargroove is a much more bloated experience, and bloated has a negative connotation, but I don't mean it that way. The maps in Wargroove are sweeping and large and epic in scale, and on your side you can easily have 24 units facing up against another force of 24 units or more, which is in stark contrast to your 3 mechs in Into the Breach. And like I said earlier, this is a game of attrition. It's kind of sending your soldiers into the meat grinder, bashing them into the opposing force until one side slowly gains momentum and pushes back against the other. This game has been called kind of derivative. It maybe could be criticized for not being innovative enough, but since we haven't had too many entries in this style of turn-based strategy game in over a decade, not being super innovative is not such a big crime, since we're kind of starved for this kind of content. But it does bring a cool innovation to the table, though. Wargroove has some great unit variety.
I'm looking at these guys.
I've encountered your typical like foot soldiers and cavalry and siege engines and ranged units. I've been introduced to flying units, and I haven't even progressed far enough in the story to see the naval units, but those are in there too. You know, in these kind of games, there's some element of luck when you run up to hit a guy. There's a chance you're going to land a critical strike and do some extra damage. Not the case in Wargroove. They handle critical strikes differently, and I really like it. Each unit type has this kind of thematic criteria that if they fulfill it, then they're going to do bonus damage. They're going to get a critical hit. And what I mean by thematic is they tailor the criteria based on the unit type. So you have a pikeman, and if you're in a real battle with pikemen, they want to hold the line, stay in formation, and like form a phalanx, basically. So in Wargroove, if your pikemen attack while they're standing next to other pikemen you control, that's how they get a critical hit. They lose their effectiveness once they're isolated. And a knight, he critical hits if he moves his full 6 movement space before attacking. So kind of to simulate him charging and getting up to full speed. So there's all sorts of fun things like that. Archers critical hit if they don't move, kind of showing that they're taking their time to aim and get a more precise hit. So yeah, instead of having it blind luck determine how effective you're being, it's all about your positioning and how tactically you can use your individual units.
So there's a battlefield with terrain, like Into the Breach, but it goes into like a split screen cutscene when you attack?
Right, that's a very Advanced Wars thing. If you want to, every time you do an attack, it shows a quick cutscene. Your guy's on one side of the screen, the enemy on the other. They clash in the middle, and you see their health bars adjust because hitting a guy, they also have a chance to hit you back, assuming they're in range. So you'll both take damage.
But that's just like a cute cinematic?
Yeah, it doesn't really serve any other purpose than to just add some cinematic flair. But it does take up some time, so you have the option to turn it off, which is appreciated. So Wargroove is great. Something it can do that Into the Breach just doesn't have the opportunity to is, and I love this, multiple fronts will develop across the course of a game. Since the maps are so big, you'll have different parts of the battlefield that are hotspots for conflict, and you're micromanaging where to pump your resources, which fronts are you winning, which do you need to hold and kind of just stall the enemy for a while, which are you losing and can you afford to lose them? Because usually if you lose a front, that opens up the enemy to sweep in and kind of destroy your infrastructure, your towns which are producing income, or your barracks which produce units. Just the constant managing and shuffling guys around between different windows of conflict. It's a whole bunch of fun.
What do I play this on?
You can play it on the Switch, which actually... It was made with the Switch in mind, for sure. I don't know if I mentioned the developer. It's Chucklefish is the name of the people who made this. They should be very pleased because I think when it came out, Wargroove was #1 on the Switch's best seller list, so it's performing well. I'm currently playing the Steam version on my PC, and it's not an expensive game. Its full price is only $20, and let me tell you about how much content is jam-packed into this game. There's your typical single-player campaign, which I am still working on 15 hours in. It's a lot of fun. But then you have other single-player options. You have a mode they call the puzzle mode, which is a whole bunch of these one-off scenarios where you just have to take a single turn to accomplish this one objective, like a puzzle. You're not fighting a whole battle. It's kind of this set-up, predetermined scenario. And it's just a single turn. You have to usually kill the enemy commander, but it's just really unclear how you can even manage to do this with the resources you're allocated. I've only tried 2 of them, and I haven't been able to beat them without cheating and looking up a solution, so they're pretty tough. There's an arcade mode where you get to pick one of the 12 different commanders and just do some, I think it's around 5 battles with that specific commander. What differentiates commanders are their grooves. That's where the groove in Wargroove comes from, which is just kind of like a special ability they have, whether it's healing or popping down a shield or summoning a unit, things like that. That's only this game's single-player offerings. It has a very fleshed out multiplayer suite as well.
You're thinking you could beat me in this game.
I'm throwing down the gauntlet right here, Heath. I'm challenging you to Wargroove.
Well, I'll take your challenge because I'm looking at this game and from what you're saying, I'm struggling to think of something that I don't like about it because the design is charming and the gameplay seems really well thought out. Is there anything that you anticipate I'd be like, I don't care for that?
The story is definitely throwaway. They don't spend a lot of time on it. There's usually like a 30 second to 45 second cutscene before a battle just to provide some context of why you're fighting. But it doesn't take itself very seriously. It doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. No, I have very little to nitpick here. I guess it has these 4 different factions in the game, and I was expecting some kind of asymmetry between them. They're very much identical, which you could argue is a good thing if you like symmetrical gameplay. The only differences between them are each faction has its own 3 commanders, and the commanders are different amongst them, which is a pretty minor thing. And the multiplayer, Heath, you can buy this game on your platform of choice because it has seamless crossplay between the Switch and the PC.
Oh.
I can attest to the multiplayer working flawlessly. I played one game with a friend. He was on Switch, I was on PC, worked like a charm. It's asynchronous play, so you can take a turn, walk away, and you'll get a notification when it's your turn again.
Okay.
Which lends itself to maybe having multiple games going at once. There's a huge amount of customization options when you're setting up your match, whether it's the maps or the wind conditions or even weather, things like that. And if that wasn't enough, Heath, there's a third pillar to this game. This is arguably the most ambitious pillar in Wargroove besides the single player and multiplayer offerings. There's a whole scenario editor and campaign maker. This is basically the Super Mario Maker of Advance War style games.
You can just paint your own battlefield?
You can make your own battlefield. You can lay down units in such a way to set up a scenario. You can string battles together in your very own campaign, even going so far as to make cutscenes in engine and type out dialogue for your characters. And you can share this all with other players. And they're promising lots of mod support in the future. They have an expansion plan as far as DLC goes. This is a very generous offering for a mere $20. And I love every minute I've spent with it.
I feel like I'm the king of my own little world, and you're like some Marco Polo traveling on the Silk Road, and you're like, I bring you this Wargroove, and I'm like, what is this foreign entity? This is just totally new to me. But the king is pleased.
I'm trying to pass on my foreign spices to you in the form of turn-based strategy games.
It definitely feels like it.
Oh, here is one legitimate criticism I have. Although it's a double-edged sword. Much like Into the Breach, There's no save scumming in this game. You can't save right before you do a risky play, have it blow up in your face, and reload it without consequences, because you cannot save mid-battle. And Into the Breach, I think this is a fantastic piece of design because matches are so bite-sized. I'm literally in and out of a game of Into the Breach in like 7 to 10 minutes. However, with Wargroove being that more bloated experience I mentioned earlier, I'm playing matches that last an hour or more. And without the ability to save, that means if the tides turn against you and 45 minutes in, you think you've lost your opportunity to emerge successful, that means you have to start from scratch. There's no mid-mission checkpoint. You have to start from the very beginning, from square one. I like the difficulty so far. It pushes back for sure, but hasn't been insurmountable. There's some very specific difficulty-related things you can tailor. It's not just straightforward easy, medium, hard. You can adjust what percent damage enemies hit you with, whether you take off maybe 10% or something like that. You can get very granular with the difficulty settings. I've been playing everything on the default settings, but even still, once in a while, I'll hit a mission where, yeah, it beats me. I have to start over, and that's not the best feeling when I've just been playing it for 30 to 40 minutes already. But I also like that it saves myself. The game prevents me from save scumming, which I don't like save scumming, but I also don't have the self-discipline not to do. I'm a big cheater when it comes to XCOM Enemy Unknown. I ruin it for myself with the save scumming.
Well, there's so many compilations of people getting 96% chance to hit and it misses, and you just get the best reactions out of it. So yeah, there's no reason not to save scum, except for honor. But who has honor?
And XCOM has the Iron Man mode where you can't do it. Yeah. So that's cool. But Wargroove is permanent Iron Man mode. No save scumming whatsoever. And that's just about all I had to say about this game. I had a lot prepared. Loving it so far.
On to our new segment from the desk of Heath. It is time for Every Company is Wrong. First company of the day, the NFL. So, Chris, imagine, if you will, just the most perfect idea, the most perfect crossover. If there was a dentistry that teamed up with the Fairly Odd Parents to do a My Shiny Teeth crossover, that's just brilliant. I'll floss every day if I can get that kind of level of brilliant marketing with childhood memories. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm interested where you're taking this analogy.
Well, the NFL is given this gift of the SpongeBob halftime show. Remember that episode where they play
the Super Bubble Bowl?
Yes, they perform Sweet Victory in the end of the episode. And the Super Bowl is a football game that happens in February. And the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, the show, Steven something, he passes away. And what does the NFL do to pay homage to a very influential TV producer who only wanted to entertain kids and introduce us to the preservation of marine biology? What did the NFL do? They teased you the first 20 seconds of Sweet Victory, and then they cut to Travis Scott. And you don't have to know who Travis Scott is. You just need to know that the NFL was the perfect Hail Mary of a pass just to have him bobble it in the end zone to do with sports. So very, very sad. The halftime show, because it was just Maroon 5 and Travis Scott, which was fine. But you should have had Maroon 5 and Travis Scott perform Sweet Victory. This could not have been a bigger slam dunk. And everyone on the internet is enraged by the how could you mess this up? There was a football game in which, you know what a lateral is?
Throwing kind of passing to the side. Is that
Yes.
correct?
So any player can do a lateral, which is to toss the ball to a teammate as long as there's no forward progression. You're not like doing a pass. Only the quarterback can do a pass. But you don't see very many laterals, or you obviously haven't heard of many laterals. That's because they're not that effective. 90% of the plays that include laterals do not make forward progress, let alone score a touchdown. There was one play that had like 3 laterals, and it did score a touchdown to win the game, no less. To like get within 1 point of winning the game or something. And all the field goal kicker had to do was just kick it through the uprights. And the kicker of this one team, this is a John Boyce video that I'm paraphrasing. The kicker of this one team, he's like a super consistent kicker. And this is like a really like easy 25-yard field goal attempt. It's like totally doable by this aspiring kicker who's probably going to go to the NFL. He botches the kick to lose the game. And so that loss by that team, it had to be crushing for them. And it is just as crushing for every kid aged 12 to 22 who had to sit through the first few seconds of the SpongeBob Super Bowl performance just to have them be like, but what if we didn't do that and we just play a little Maroon 5? The kids love Maroon 5. So that's strike one on the NFL.
Yeah, it's disappointing that they started to do it and then just didn't follow through.
It was a fake out.
It's worse than if they had just not done it at all whatsoever.
Right? That's what caused the frustration that everyone's feeling. So next company that doesn't know what they're doing is Ubisoft. You know Ubisoft, right? Makers of Assassin's Creed. Everybody has played an Assassin's Creed game at this point. What was your favorite Assassin's Creed game?
That's tough.
Maybe the second one. That's like
on a future episode soon. I'm probably going to give a brief history of my Assassin's Creed love affair. At this point in time, my favorite is a toss-up between Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. It's one of those.
Very good candidates. Brotherhood just took what was in Assassin's Creed 2 and like fixed up some of the in-game economy and gave you like twice as many blades or whatever. And it had multiplayer, and that multiplayer was a banger. And then Black Flag, it was Assassin's Creed 4. You're the pirate, introduced ship combat, and that was innovative, and it actually worked. You could actually pilot the thing. It wasn't super slow and clunky like you think ship sailing would be. So more going back to the original Assassin's Creed games. You know how Resident Evil 2 got remade recently, and it's we're talking the G of the Y, if you know what I'm saying. Assassin's Creed,
practically a new game. It's so created from scratch.
Right, and Ubisoft clearly wanted to do that with their franchise. So they took an Assassin's Creed game, and they're planning on remastering it. Now, do you think it would be the first one? You know, because who has actually played Assassin's Creed 1? It's pretty bare bones. You don't have...
Haven't.
Yeah,
Everyone
skips
skips the first.
Yeah, because why? It has like the main character, you can't even pronounce his name, and
Altair.
Yeah. And the stealth is lacking, and there's it's like the Bayonetta of Assassin's Creeds. You got to go to 2 first, and then work your way up from there. Revelations, you go to Constantinople. That was a cool setting. The Janissaries are just one of the coolest like military styles in history. So when you're
Revelations is underrated, I would say.
Yeah, and like there's not many bad memories I have of Assassin's Creed, other than maybe some like it gets really boring in the late game. So when you think of an Assassin's Creed game to remaster, there's 2 schools of thought. Do you remaster the best game of the series, And Assassin's Creed has been like annualized since like 2010, right? They've just been pumping them out.
So since Assassin's Creed originally debuted in 2007, the only 2 years they took off without a mainline entry was 2008 because they're kind of like getting up and running. And then they took off 2016 because we were just so fatigued on Assassin's Creed, and then kind of rebooted things with Origins in 2017.
Right, and thank God they did, because Origins seems like a really good step in the right direction.
Agreed, yes.
So, do you remake the best game? Maybe it's a little bit dated, but it's still like the one that the next generation would like to play on the big shiny consoles that are coming. Or do you remake the oldest game, the most defunct by modern standards, so that people can actually enjoy it rather than being, because I think Assassin's Creed 1 is like locked at like 360p. Every time I see like gameplay footage of it, it's so fuzzy and gray, and it's totally a disservice to the origination of the franchise. But if they said like, nah, we're just gonna remake Assassin's Creed 2, I'd be fine with that. That's like a great game that I actually haven't played. My first one was Brotherhood. So I would totally... Don't you fight the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2?
You sure do.
And I totally would like to experience that in shiny HD. But the point of this is Ubisoft made the big oopsie, just like the NFL. They're remaking Assassin's Creed 3. Now, was Assassin's Creed 3 bad? No, it was fine. You know what the joke I made to my roommate today? I was like,
what was that?
I was like, relive the exciting gameplay of Assassin's Creed 3. And then I pantomimed the first 5 minutes where you're playing as like the father of the main character, and you're in the theater because you have to assassinate the guy in the box seats. And what's like the first movement action that you have to do? You have to like shimmy past all these the audience members of this play, and all you can hear is your character going like, "Oh, excuse me, 1,000 pardons." You know, and like you just shimmy back and forth, and my roommate got it because he remembered. That's all you remember from like the beginning of the game. I totally do not need Assassin's Creed 3 remastered. It's still sitting on my Xbox One that's on the floor right next to me. I could play it and it'll look fine. Why take the effort to upscale the bunny textures on a adequate version of this series that is already like super accessible? I can't think of an Assassin's Creed game that I would less like remastered. This was the last choice. Maybe Black Flag was just as much of a last choice because Black Flag was great and it's still contemporary, right?
Right. Black Flag came out simultaneously on the previous generation and our current generation. It was like a launch title.
Okay, never mind. So maybe AC3 is not on my Xbox. I just remember being in ninth grade.
You can probably play AC3 through backwards compatibility, though.
Yeah, but why would I? I have other games I would need to play. I still haven't played Red Dead. Come on.
So I'm going to say that Ubisoft didn't mess up quite as much as you're saying here, Heath, only because, here's the part I'll agree with you with. If you're charting the trajectory of the Assassin's Creed franchise and the quality of the games, Assassin's Creed 3 is definitely a valley. It's a bit of a low point. I don't think it's as bad of a game as kind of the internet might lead you to believe. I think it's enjoyable to some extent.
The first thing I said was that it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I agree, yeah. But you were saying how, like, it's not one of the good ones, per se.
Well, I mean, if you're going to remaster the good ones, I can think of 3 before it.
Yes, the ones that star Ezio.
Yeah. And I mean, Black Flag was better.
Okay. The thing is, Ubisoft, in their lust for profits and money, they've already remastered all the Ezio Assassin's Creed games and released them on current gen systems. It's called the Ezio Trilogy.
Oh.
So as far as games that are not on current gen that they could remaster, they have two options: Assassin's Creed 3 or Assassin's Creed 1.
Oh.
So of those two, I'd say probably bring back 3 because 1, even if it looks nicer, is probably hard to go back to from a gameplay standpoint.
Well, you changed the gameplay. That's what Resident Evil did.
Oh, yeah. So they haven't put that level of love and care into any of these remasters. These are frame rate and resolution bumps. They're not rebuilding these with a new engine from scratch.
I mean, why bother? If I'm getting the remasters at the quality of Resident Evil 2 in 2019, why go back to these like just once over polishes of frame rates and aspect ratios? Nah, go get dirty with your remasters.
That's a fair criticism. I would probably say that was not Ubisoft's goal with this. I have to imagine creating the Resident Evil 2 remake was probably just as much money as like creating a brand new contemporary game. To the extent that they created this from scratch, maybe they took some like design elements from the first game's plot. But Ubisoft, their intention here is clear. They're trying to get this out the door as quickly and for as little development cost as possible. Just getting this game on a new platform to get some easy, safe money.
Yeah, I'm not happy though.
Right. If they were going to put in the amount of resources necessary to bring back Assassin's Creed 3 in a brand new engine with the latest physics and lighting.
You mean Assassin's Creed 1?
Assassin's Creed 1 or 3. They'd probably just spend that resources on the next game in the franchise instead.
Yeah. All right, thus concludes Every Company is Wrong. Next up.
Oh, wait.
What?
What about, did you have a third company?
Well, yes. I mean, they weren't necessarily wrong. They're just dying.
Okay. Go for it.
Chris, thank you for coming. I guess now is the chance for us to say a few words about the dearly departed, or soon to be departed, BioWare. Now, BioWare is a video game company that you're more familiar with, having played the Dragon Age and the Mass Effect and the Baldur's Gates.
I've never played Baldur's Gate, but
what are you talking about? No, didn't we? Oh, I'm thinking of freaking what's the Viking isometric
Banner Saga.
Yeah, Banner Saga,
totally
Baldur's Gate, same thing. Anyway, did you play Knights of the Old Republic?
No, my BioWare history starts with Mass Effect and Dragon Age and ends there.
Okay, but okay, so BioWare used to be like a super. BioWare used to be on par with who makes BioShock?
Irrational Games?
Yeah, Irrational Games and like a Treyarch, maybe.
Absolutely. BioWare was a leader in the industry.
Yes, and we remember them fondly, even though they are still a company. The point I'm getting at is they spent a ton of money on Anthem, their current... it's basically Iron Man, the game. You're just in a mech suit, shooty gun, fly through the sky. And the demo went up recently because the game's not out yet. The game comes out like the 22nd.
Yeah.
So Anthem needs to be a smash hit for BioWare to stay afloat because...
Especially after the whole...
The release of
Andromeda fiasco.
Yes. How much of a stinker was Mass Effect Andromeda? In space, no one can hear you scream, but they also can't hear you fart. And Mass Effect Andromeda was a big fart. Tell the kids.
Played it. I'm afraid to touch Mass Effect Andromeda, for it has the potential to tarnish my very cherished memories with the original Mass Effect trilogy. What I've heard from sources on the internet is that if you were to pick up Mass Effect Andromeda and play it right now, they have remedied a bunch of the atrocious facial animations that plagued it at launch.
Imagine
However,
Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, but just put in a blender and paper mached into what might be a face. And did you hear any of the dialogue that was in this game? It was
I tried not to listen to it.
It was the cringiest. Like, I killed that guy. I bet he's pretty mad because he's dead. Like your rogues gallery of NPC companions were terrible acting and dialogue.
What you're saying is the dialogue in this game would be right at home in the YouTube video I watched called "Why I Can't Introduce Kingdom Hearts to My Friends."
Yeah, it's atrocious. But sorry, I cut you off. You said that you didn't stay away from Andromeda.
Right, I've stayed clear from it. It suffers from cookie cutter copy and paste side quest design, where it's mostly fetch quests. It's almost like an MMO. It's almost like a single player MMO. And Dragon Age Inquisition suffered from this same kind of thing to probably a lesser degree. It seems to have been amplified in Andromeda. From what I've heard, if you were to dive into Andromeda today, right now, it would be okay. It would be okay as a game, but if you compare it to any of the previous Mass Effects, that's where it just falls woefully short.
Right. So BioWare needed a hit to restore its reputation and its coffers because they spent so much money on Anthem for it to not be a stellar demo. What I mean by this is, the gameplay itself and the movement is satisfactory to the kinds of people who would buy those games. It's definitely no Titanfall 2. Did you ever play Titanfall 2?
I adore the Titanfall series.
And why is that?
As far as the movement goes in Titanfall, it's some of the best I've ever experienced in any first-person shooter.
It is outstanding, and it should never have existed. How is it that in this world saturated by first-person shooters, we managed to salvage this amazing shooter with like the best wall running, the best friggin' jetpacks and like hacking into other people's mechs. And when you're in the mech itself, it's not a super clunky experience. It's like pretty fast, even depending on the build you're going for, right?
Yeah, you can get the slow tanky mechs, but you can for sure get very fast ones.
Whereas in Anthem, from what I've heard, it's your flight speed in your mech suit is no greater than maybe like your run speed on land, and the menus are atrocious, and not intuitive. According to some people playing on PC, you can't. Your mouse wasn't working, so you'd have to like use the keyboard to tab through things. And granted, this is all a demo and not indicative of the final product, but like it's just adequate by first-person shooter standards. And
it's a third-person shooter, right?
Oh, is it? Oh crap! I'm gonna have to edit all of this. Is it? Shoot.
Yeah, it's third person.
Okay, it's adequate by third-person shooter standards. I'll say that. Man, take away my blue check mark that I don't have. Also, here's something funny. For a game called Anthem, the music sucks.
That's
not
disappointing
great.
to hear. Mass Effect has some great tracks in it.
Yes, but the dearly departed. So, why do I say BioWare is gonna die? Because they needed Anthem to be a smash hit, and it's going to be a decent blip numbers wise, but investors aren't going to like it, and I think BioWare will close down within the next 9 months, which is a decent prediction given like the size of a company.
Wow, you think things are pretty dire, don't you?
Yeah, BioWare is not going to make it to 2020.
So BioWare, they have the next Dragon Age game in development. It was teased at the Game Awards.
It's going to be picked up by Retro Games.
I don't think Anthem's performance will result in BioWare's closure, but I agree with what you're saying. I don't think Anthem is going to light the world on fire, which BioWare kind of needed it to do in order to salvage their tarnished reputation here. From what I've heard, the gameplay is, you used the word I've heard, it's adequate, it's fun enough. But since they're going for this games as a service, always online, come back and keep playing the game daily type of game, in order for someone to like commit to one of those, it needs to be better than that. You need to care about the world. You need to care about the characters to some extent. You need to have like some compelling endgame content. And this is a demo, so those things could very well be in the final product and they just are not present in the demo. But the indication I have and that people who have played the demo seem to be reporting on is that they doubt whether those worthwhile aspects that would keep them coming back, they doubt that those are going to be in the game. And this could be a game many people bounce off of in a relatively short amount of time, which is not what BioWare is striving for here. So it could be kind of a failure in that sense.
Rest in peace. We knew you well. You died so young. Those are the three companies that I just felt like talking about today. Back to you, Chris.
Okay. Enough with the downer parts. Let's talk about the future and how it's bright and there's potential for me and for you to fall in love with something new. And that brings us to our topic, our question this week, which I will pose, and that is, Keith, are there any big, long-running, well-established gaming franchises that, for one reason or another, you've just never had a chance to delve into despite really wanting to?
Well, I mean, like, I haven't played Overwatch for more than like an hour, and that game's still going strong, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it keeps winning Best Ongoing Game at the Game Awards every year, so it has to be doing something right.
But that's not a franchise, so maybe that's kind of cheating necessarily.
Maybe a bit. I'll give my answer.
Okay.
So if you ask me what my favorite video game genre is, my go-to answer is always the RPG. And what kind of a self-proclaimed RPG fan could I possibly be, having never played a Final Fantasy game? And that's true, I've never played one. And there's 15 of them at the moment, not counting the spin-offs like Crystal Chronicles or something like that. And this is a game series I think I would really like. Like, I'm a fan of turn-based JRPG combat. Persona is my jam. And I've charted out my entry into this franchise. I know which ones I want to play. Final Fantasy VI is like right the last one before they started going 3D, and it's heralded as one of the best. I absolutely want to play that one. 15, the most contemporary, kind of a departure from how the gameplay usually goes, but it looks interesting. It's now received all this post-release content, and it's like more of a finished product now. I want to play that. They've made the games very accessible. I think you can get like almost all of them on Steam, more or less. The 6 and 15 are the two I most want to play. However, there are others as well, like 7 has piqued my curiosity. I know the 7 remake is coming, but kind of like Resident Evil 2, I suspect that will be it'll be like a whole new game.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want the exposure to Final Fantasy, A, because I think I will enjoy it, and B, because it's such a hallmark of gaming's history and of the RPG genre that I feel like a poser having no experience with it.
If I may also change my answer to better reflect how much of a poser I am, I think a franchise that I should probably get my hands on at some point is Half-Life. I know that they remade it with Black Mesa and that there are fan-made versions of Half-Life 3 based on like a script that the guy wrote while he was still at Valve. What's your how much Half-Life have you touched?
I'm at the same level of poser as you are. Never touched them.
But it's apparently like one of the best games, right?
Yeah, I think people
or do you
hold
look
up
upon it like what's a game that people like that just doesn't have the appeal?
Kingdom Hearts.
yeah. Do you look on it like a Kingdom Hearts game?
No, I don't look at it like that. Here's where, having not played them, here's how I think it would go should I pick one up. Half-Life 2 is heralded as like super important and influential in the first-person shooter genre, especially for including weapons like the gravity gun. Those are cool. I feel like since it has been so influential, and I have played many first-person shooters that came post Half-Life 2, I feel like the level of innovation it had on display back when it came out in 2004 just wouldn't really hit me the same way since I've played its successors. I've played games that have taken cues from it, so it wouldn't be doing the same beats for the first time from my perspective, having played games that came afterwards. That's how I feel about how I would probably experience Half-Life. That's how I think it would go.
Right. So that's one franchise, and then the other franchise is Halo. You know the Halo game that I've played the most?
I don't know.
Halo Wars, the real-time strategy spin-off. I have not played any of the mainline Halo games. And
this comes as a shock to me.
Why?
I pegged you as kind of a Halo person.
Nah, dude. So it's a first-person shooter, right? So my first-person shooter days started with Call of Duty Finest Hour on the GameCube that I played on the Wii. Yeah, we played it on the Wii. This was like as early as 8th grade. And then as soon as I could play those types of games, we jumped into World at War. And I don't know what Halo game was available at the same time as World at War, but there was not the likelihood that I was going to put down one of the best Call of Duty games of the past, I can't say decade because it's in 2008. Crap. Well, okay, one of the best Call of Duty games they ever made. It's to play Spaceman. That looked less appealing to me. So yeah, I've never touched a Halo game. I wouldn't know where to start.
There are a lot of them now. If I think you would probably dig them. If I were you, as an Xbox One owner, maybe the Halo Master Chief Collection would give you a good point to jump on to, since it is a very good, well done remaster of... it's more than a remaster, more of a remake of the first 4 Halo games. I should say the first 2 are remade, 3 and 4 are more remastered.
Okay.
Yeah, that game was very maligned with multiplayer networking issues at launch, but it's much better now that we've come almost 4.5 years since release. But I'm more, I guess I'm 50-50 between liking Halo for its single-player campaigns and its multiplayer competitive shooting. I like them both equally.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Maybe we should play co-op one day and play a level or two.
You're going to be too busy trying to outpace me in Wargroove after I just totally mastermind all the best exploits in that game at the second I pick it up on my Switch.
That's right.
Good question, though.
Yeah, for the record, that one multiplayer game I played to test it out on Wargroove, I got my butt handed to me. It was a very entertaining game, though. It was a bit of a stalemate for a while. I thought I was finally having the momentum swing in my direction, but then I didn't even have time to see this coming. There was just a super well done surprise play made. This trebuchet, I should say, came out of nowhere and took out my stronghold in a mere 2 turns. Well played by my opponent.
And just listening to that, like that's what I really dig is these hard reads but it's still turn-based.
Yes, it was a brilliant move on his part.
Yeah, I'll
All
try
right.
this.
I think we adequately answered that question, which brings us to the final segment of the show, the one you and I wait for, the listener emails.
Folks, I love listener emails, and if you want to send us emails, all you got to do is send an email to mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. And I'm so happy we have another email. I don't know what it is.
All right. Our favorite Not a Leech writing in, Nathan. He has 2 questions for us today.
Cool. I dig it.
Question number 1. Nathan asks, are MMORPGs dying in this age of gaming? And just for clarity, the acronym stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Games. Do we think they are dying in severe decline currently?
No. Right? This is Warcraft and Dota, right?
Dota is more of a MOBA, but definitely World of Warcraft is an MMO.
What about League?
League is also a MOBA.
Okay.
So these are like big worlds you explore with hundreds of people. It's an RPG. You're leveling up. You go on raids. There's like single player quests and content. Other ones that come to mind, I think there's a Star Wars one called, maybe it's The Old Republic.
Oh yeah, I name dropped it.
Got it. The one
Without
people
even
always
knowing.
think of is World of Warcraft. There's like Black Desert Online. Oh, there's the Elder Scrolls Online.
Okay, that one's dying. Or will
other
be
ones that
dead
are
when
out there-
Skyrim 2 comes out.
Guild Wars 2 is big right now.
Okay.
That's still alive and going strong.
Is Baldur's Gate? Is that another thing I name dropped that's MMO?
I'm pretty sure that's just a single player game.
Okay.
Are they dying? So Nate, to speak to your question, I've never played an MMO. It's not a genre I'm familiar with. Despite adoring RPGs, this is, I guess, one of those subgenres of RPG I never touched. Like the way they handle subscription models kind of is a turnoff for me. Although there are free ones out there like Guild Wars 2. It's just they demand a large commitment, whether it's time or like organizing with other people to take on this late game raid content. They're more fun with friends.
If they were dying, I feel like we would hear about it. I feel like it'd be like, subscriptions to Warcraft Panda Zone are lowest they've been in years. What does Blizzard have to say about it? And then Blizzard just would could stop burning all their money because they got so much of it and be like, we'll just release a patch.
I don't think they're dying. Blizzard in the next year, or maybe it's even this year, I think they're bringing out like a vanilla version of World of Warcraft, like back to the basics, no expansions added. And if they have plans to do that, surely there's enough interest to warrant doing so. What I actually think is happening is I think the MMORPG genre is evolving, not dying. I think they're in their chrysalis right now, and what's emerging is these new games as a service type games.
Are you talking about that gas?
Yeah. I'm looking at examples such as Destiny and The Division, games where you frequently interact with other players in like this shared kind of world, this shared playing space.
Anthem.
And Anthem, yes. Very apt to bring that up as well. Whether, I think maybe by some definition you could call these MMORPGs, they're definitely heavily influenced by the predecessors like World of Warcraft.
Oh, dude, like the first line of Wikipedia is like, Anthem is an upcoming online multiplayer action role-playing game. Yeah, it's an MMORPG. Yeah, they're not dying. I mean, okay. Like I said, Anthem is adequate, and yeah, your MMORPGs are becoming gas games as a service.
Yeah, and I guess the market can probably only sustain so many of these at one point in time. Like, these games, by their inherent to their nature, demand like a large player base to be functioning properly. So if a whole bunch of them are out at once, there's only so many players you can pull from to fill these lobbies, to populate these servers. So I don't think we've hit full saturation just yet, but we're getting dangerously close. And if that were to happen, I bet you will see that new games breaking into this market becomes almost not feasible. That's what I was trying to say.
MMORPGs are as dead as crafting is. It's not going anywhere.
Got it.
I can't decide if that was eloquent.
I can see some parallels to be drawn. Like for a while there, it seemed like every other game coming out had to have a crafting component in it. And I think that's died down slightly. Maybe we hit too many crafting games. People got sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything more to say before we move on to Nate's second question?
Nah, I mean, like, neither of us have spent any time in MMORPGs, but, like, even though the most recent iterations are stinkers, I don't think that's going to siphon the interest that people have for this games as a service model. There are some boys that will just sink all their time and money into these social yet complex role-playing experiences.
Well said.
Gas boys.
Nate's second question is, if you could create a new video game crossover to make a single game with elements, characters, stories, graphics, or unique mechanics from two games of any franchise, what would your choices be and why? For example, a game like Super Smash Bros. Or Kingdom Hearts incorporates characters and graphics from different games. So those are two examples Nate lists as games that have done this kind of crossover idea before. If we went to the drawing board, we could Frankenstein any two games together into our own personally tailored game crossover. Which choices would you make and why?
Madden and Pokemon. I want all the athleticism of Madden and the cool, I just basically want all these sports fanatics that I would see in the dorms when I was walking on rounds as an RA. I want them to be like, gotta catch all these athletes in the overworld, and having the same pop-offs that they do while playing Madden by making these hard reads in 1v1 trainer battles. And I want the Pokemon music playing over these these Madden battles.
What would the tagline of this game be?
The
Because like
tagline?
Pokemon, it's like Pocket Monsters. What would this be called?
Nah, this is just I mean, it's gotta. It would be. I still want it to be Pokemon. What's like a sports word? Give me a moment. I still want it to be like Pokemon touchdown and Pokemon. No, one of them's gonna. Okay, so here it comes. One of them's gonna be Pokemon Jam, and it's gonna have basketball players, and then the other one's gonna be Pokemon Sack, and that's gonna be football players, and you can trade them, and they all have their own moves.
Right, because every generation of new Pokemon games simultaneously comes out with two versions to encourage trading. So
Yes.
That's kind of what you're going for here.
Yes, and you'll have legendaries like Brett Favre and Michael Jordan, but then you'll also have like how there's like mythical Pokemon that aren't quite legendary, but they like show up somewhere. You'll have mythical basketball players, like Spike Lee and Lil Dicky, and then you'll have mythic football players like the female ref that just got hired. I don't know. Is somebody building this as I say it?
We can only dream. So I had a week to like sit on this question and mull it over and come up with an answer.
And you came up with the exact same crossover.
Yes, truly this is the only correct response. Pokemon and Madden.
It's the most common denominator.
Yeah, so what I came up with, I really struggled with this question, and I have kind of a lame response because I'm combining two things that are pretty similar to begin with. So I love the Total War series. That's my grand strategy game of choice. When you get into a battle, it turns into a real-time strategy game while previously managing your empire from like your overhead state. That it's done in a turn-based format until you hit a conflict. And you get to play that with this really cool, flashy, cinematic, real-time strategy battle. And I'm sure that like appeals to maybe even a majority of people. But I
put the rabbids in it.
No, keep those far away. I just wish instead of having it switch to a real-time way, I wish it kind of stayed turn-based. That's what gives me the most satisfaction. So I would combine, say, Total War with Wargroove to create battles that are also turn-based that play out in a kind of a Wargroove style. If that were the case, I would probably never put down Total War. That would be all I ever needed.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, maybe not the most creative mishmash of genres, but that's probably what my heart desires the most.
That's a good one. I'm trying to think of the games you like and what would make me want to really play them. Dishonored, but you can skate.
I feel like I'm a car salesman. Heath, what can I do to get you into a Danganronpa today?
Oh, you have to put like YouTubers in it and change its name to something like it's got to have you know all those what genre is Overwatch?
I'd say it's first person shooter, specifically a character based first person or a hero shooter is the name for it.
Yeah, just put some of them in a Dishonored or excuse me, Danganronpa. Just put what's I don't even know Dishonored's main character's name. It's probably like Atlas Shroud.
Corvo Atano.
Yeah, same thing. Put him in Danganronpa and just have him futz around.
Every time a murder occurs, it's just always Corvo.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay. I mean, this pitch is not gonna.
I thought it was interesting what you said. Instead of having this cast of Japanese high schoolers, instead you're doing the cast of Overwatch. That's a colorful group of characters.
Yeah.
In a murder mystery setting.
This was Nathan's question.
Yes.
All right, Nathan. Let me workshop it. I'm certain, I can come up with some gold after I do some digging.
Excellent. Is that going to wrap up episode 9 of Mobius Tubes?
Yo, when we come back, maybe I will have played a game.
I know I have some pretty exciting stuff on my docket, so I will be eager to report back on the next episode, which will be episode 10. We're going to hit 2 digits.
I know, and I'm trying to be like, let's celebrate by me actually participating. But I can't think of like, okay, I could fire up Red Dead, or I could, just I mentioned Crackdown last episode. When am I gonna have time to play Crackdown? This is okay. So it's gotta be Wargroove, but we already talked about that, so now it's off limits. Crap. Chris, help me.
I have for next week. I have a topic I've been sitting on. Saving it specifically for episode 10, so we'll have that to look forward to.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. That puts less pressure on me, but come next episode, I'll be swinging.
Sweet. All right. Take it away, Heath.
Thank you for listening, folks. Please send us those emails, MobiusTubesPodcast@gmail. I really dig them, and I look forward to speaking to you next episode.